For the record, Bob Lucy is not in attendance.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. At this time, we're going to move into the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Art Sperber, if you would lead us in the pledge. Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're moving into item 1.3, presentation on Locked Eyes Save Lives. Mr. Moreno, good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Michael Moreno, Public Affairs Manager. It's good to be back with you today. This morning, we are proud to share with you the Locked Eyes, Saved Lives pedestrian and driver safety awareness campaign that we launched ahead of the 4th of July holiday. What historically includes the 2 deadliest days on the road. With the creative work designed by the Abbey Agency, the campaign is a compelling and visual message that we hope resonates with everyone in our community. Although the message is not new, it re-emphasizes the shared responsibility between pedestrians and drivers. Here to present the campaign, on behalf of the Abbey Agency, are Shawnee Knight and Ben Engel. Oh, while they're coming up, the photo you see on the screen is part of our launch week activities. Chair Jardin is there with owner of Hub Coffee Roasters, Mark Trujillo, and what they're holding up are coffee cups with sleeves with the Locked Eyes, Saved Lives logo. That launch week, and Ben and Shawnee will go into this a little bit more detail, Hub Coffee Roasters partnered with us to raise the awareness, launch the campaign, and provided a free cup of black coffee with this sleeve to all their customers for that launch week. So, Shawnee, Ben, take it away.
Good morning. Thank you, Michael. For the record, Shawnee Knight and Ben Engel from the Abbey Agency. A total of 15 pedestrians died in Reno in 2019. Not only was this the highest number since 2016, but it was also a rate that's higher than the national average. As a Reno resident and having been in Reno for a very long time, I think that this is a number that appalls us all. 23 students in addition to this were in non-fatal crashes, which, as we know, as a university town, we want to make sure that our students, our pedestrians, and our drivers are all being safe. That's why this campaign is so needed. Drawing the focus to the importance of this human connection, not saying it's the drivers, it's the pedestrians. We all need to be paying attention. We all need to understand that even behind a 1.5-ton car of steel and rubber, it's important that we're remembering who's behind that driver's seat and who is walking down that street next to us. This is where this campaign comes in. We wanted to deploy as many marketing tactics to encourage people to maintain that human connection and maintain that idea that we're all humans behind walking to the store, behind driving to the store, behind walking through the university and making sure that we're all being safe. Our goals in this is to reach 0 fatalities. In support of the Vision Zero Truckee Meadows goal, by 2030, we want to be able to accomplish that. We want to raise awareness of this problem. All of us know, like Michael was saying, this is not new. This is not a revolutionary idea. We all know that this is a problem that we face. And we want to make sure that both motorists and pedestrians and those drivers can reduce those collisions and fatalities by 2030 and reduce them to 0. Our target audiences are both those drivers and the pedestrians. We want to make sure that we're looking at youth, both away and at schools. We're looking at seniors, the aging population. They are behind the wheels of cars and they're driving as safely as they can. But when light's low, when there's traffic, we're looking at the aging population walking across the street. They may walk slower. We all need to be paying attention to those things. And we're looking at public transportation customers. There's buses, people are loading and unloading, and we want to make sure that everyone is being aware of this as they're moving throughout their day, and the homeless population. We all know that there's a large homeless population here in the city of Reno, and we want to make sure that they are also taken into account when we are looking at how safe drivers and pedestrians both need to be while they're trafficking through Reno. In addition, Washoe County has a sizable Spanish-speaking audience. At the Abbey Agency, we have a lot of experience with transliteration and transcreation. This is not just translation of an ad. This is not just translation of a message. This means that we actually take those and say, how can we make this transcreated into something that makes sense for this culture, makes sense for this population, makes sense for these people who may not speak English first. This campaign is focused in English, but we would like to transcreate those ads and make it more approachable for every part of Reno. So this campaign strategy that we went after, we wanted to make sure that we were approaching and reminding drivers that this 1.5 tons of metal and rubber that they are hurling down the road is kept in mind, and that human connection is maintained the entire time. This visibility of the campaign and visibility in driving. When we're not in daylight savings time, the sun goes down a lot earlier. And at night, when people aren't wearing reflective gear, when pedestrians are walking down the street, not everyone's wearing a running jacket. Not everyone's wearing something that can be seen. So we have to maintain that human connection so that we know, let's watch out for pedestrians. Let's make sure that our drivers are paying attention. And let's make sure that we lock those eyes and know you can cross the street because I've seen you. And I see you as a person, not just as someone walking outside of my comfortable vehicle where we all feel like we're safe. We all feel like we're in this bubble that can help us. And we are. But we want to make sure that with this campaign strategy and looking at how we can keep people the safest, we want people to look at the reality of the situation. Yes, we're driving, but those pedestrians are important as well. This is where Locked Eyes Save Lives came in. We want to make sure that that human connection, putting that people first perspective into play for drivers, keeps them knowing that when, a pedestrian has the right of way, that's excellent. We all know this. This is something that we've grown up knowing, learning how to drive and driving down the street every day. But unless you've locked eyes with that person and kept that human connection and put that person first, you want to know that they're going to stop for you. You want to know that both of you are aware that I'm crossing the street as a pedestrian, and as a driver, I see you, I know you're crossing, you can cross safely. Pedestrians sometimes will think that with the right of way, that means that they can cross at any time. We want pedestrians to understand with the Locked Eyes Save Lives campaign that it doesn't just mean you have the right of way, it means that you have to have that human connection too. And same for drivers. Yes, the pedestrians have the right of way, but you need to make sure that you are stopping on time. You're stopping before the crosswalk, not in the middle of the crosswalk, giving them the ample time and ample opportunity to get across safely. This was our billboard creative. We made sure that we had two different approaches. So the top one being a little bit more focused on a younger crowd, ensuring that we've got two different types of creative that will appeal to two different audiences. The lower one being a slightly older audience, making sure that people are seeing a representation of themselves as much as you can in a billboard ad. And that way people are getting to see this while they are driving, reminding them to lock those eyes, make sure that we're saving lives every day. And we will play one of our radio ads. We did a 5-second, 15-second, and 30-second version. We will only play the 15-second at this time. Appreciate your patience while it loads. That's okay. Hopefully you hear it on the radio at some point. We were hoping to target a lot of different audiences with radio ads. If you're familiar with radio marketing, you know that people are driving to and from work and they're still listening to the radio despite the fact that we've gotten a lot of different channels now out and about for people to be listening to music. Understanding that point, we also deploy these ads on Spotify, made sure that even though some people do pay to get rid of those ads, a lot of people do still have them, and that really encourages a few different audiences. So the straight radio audience is a slightly older population that still listens to the radio and still gets that message, and the Spotify ads were geared a little bit younger, getting that audience also hearing those ads as they come in. Can you click back on the screen? Thank you. Lastly, we did do some paid social ads. So again, making sure that we're hitting each audience of people, not skewing too high up in the elderly population and not skewing too low. We wanted to make sure that we were hitting different types of marketing mediums so that each population was being hit. So paid social ads, we put those out on Facebook. That hits not only the younger population as they are online a little bit more often, but Facebook does hit a slightly older demographic. So getting these out there, making sure that even when people are not in their cars, are not walking down the street, they're still locking eyes, they're still saving lives, and we are making sure that that message is getting in front of them. And we also put out a few ads on TikTok and YouTube. The thing that's great about ads like this is that they can be used on a lot of different platforms. So you're doing one video for a lot of different purposes. And that's also a great way to kind of spread that message across. Let me see if I can get it to play. Do you have to click it? Thank you. In this video, there's typically sound behind it, but you get the message. Our message here is, of course, making sure that people that are walking across the street aren't assuming that the other person is paying attention. We aren't assuming that the driver is watching or the pedestrian is watching, and we all need to be taking the responsibility in our own hands to keep people safe. This is another TikTok that we did with the Washoe County Sheriff, and I believe
The audio won't work for some reason. I'm not
that's okay.
sure. Sorry.
This one will also have a very, I'll say, trendy background noise to it, but we'll kind of get the point across with playing it. It comes off of a yep and nope trend, but this one was relatively popular on the TikTok platform, and we have been deploying that both on TikTok and other channels. And of course, you can't turn down the sheriff's wonderful face. He is involved and excited, and I think that it really sets a really good precedent for exactly what we're expecting from pedestrians when they're looking across the street. These are our partner posters. They are also distributed along with a toolkit, making sure that people are getting the resources that they need to be able to put these up where they would like them. Giving people the opportunity to really involve themselves in this campaign is really important because we are able to give them that ability to feel like they own it. Like Locked Eyes Save Lives is a campaign that we're all deploying, but when we can get pedestrians and get drivers to really buy into that with us, that's when we can really start making change.
Thank you, Shawnee. Members of the board, my name is Ben. As a member of the PR team on this campaign, our main focus was a activation week, on-the-ground activation known as Locked Eyes Launch Week. We distributed a press release and a media advisory to all major media outlets here in the Reno-Tahoe area and in Sparks. And during the entire Locked Eyes launch week, like Michael said earlier, we partnered primarily with the Hub on Riverside Drive to distribute free black coffee to people commuting to work, as well as our creative team at the Abbey Agency created coffee sleeves, branded coffee sleeves to go along with the free black coffee to increase awareness and engagement with the campaign. And of course, RTC Chair Naoma Jardin was there at the activation day as spokesperson, where we had a very resounding media success. We had 16 total media placements in the span of just 3 days, primarily from TV news, as well as all three major TV media networks were there at the activation event. You can see in the top right-hand corner is a reporter from Colo 8. We also had radio spokespeople from KKOH as well at the activation week. And then as well as the hub partnership, we also had local artists paint Locked Eyes Save Lives logo on major pedestrian safety zone crosswalk areas. The idea was that people would be looking down at their phones as they are going up to the crosswalk. They would see the logo, and of course, they would look up and lock eyes with passing drivers. And again, like Chani mentioned earlier, we worked with the Washoe County Sheriff Department to create TikTok videos and YouTube videos, which we distributed across multiple channels. And besides that, we also created a digital toolkit that included things such as social ads, which you saw earlier, partner posters, and a blog post. The idea was that not just our partnerships with City of Reno, City of Sparks, and many other community partners could use this toolkit, but the idea was that any community member could go onto, and still can go to visionzerotruckymeadows.com and download this toolkit to share and spread the awareness of the campaign to anyone in the community. Besides City of Reno and City of Sparks, we worked with Waste Management, who is currently putting up magnetic posters and decals on their trucks. DMV is also putting their Locked Eyes Save Lives logo onto the on the TVs in their facilities, and as well as other organizations as well. And we are excited for our final push into the back-to-school season. We'll be partnering with Safe Routes to Schools, and we'll be creating educational materials for all of Washoe County School District to, again, spread the awareness of campaign before back-to-school season starts. Thank you so much.
Thank you. On behalf of the Abbey Agency, we are proud to have had the opportunity to work with RTC and develop the Locked Eyes Save Lives campaign. I want to thank you, Chairwoman Naomi Jordan, and the RTC board for your leadership and vision to help make our roads safe for everyone, and for looking out for our residents and children in our community. I also want to thank Michael Moreno, whom we had the opportunity to work closely with and provided great insight and grassroots strategies that were implemented to help execute and ensure a successful campaign. Thank you again to the RTC board and the RTC staff. Because of you and the community partners, Locked Eyes do save lives. We look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your involvement and creative content for this campaign. You'll have to forgive my voice. I've got a bit of a cold going on this morning. I think it is important to, for those listening and to those that are here today, to understand that this campaign is just one small component of a very broad approach as it relates to pedestrian, vehicle, and bicycle safety. The engineering, the enforcement, all of those things play a critical role, and this is just one of the pieces of that puzzle, but a very important one to continually bring front of mind behaviors and in a creative way to catch people's attention. And I think that's really important. I know that we will have next month a presentation on the cycle track and the protected bike lane, which is a component of road safety, bicycle safety, as well as some future meetings with regards to engineering enhancements as part of the Vision Zero campaign, and that will be rolling out. And of course, all of the stuff we're doing with the pedestrian safety zones. So this is just one of the pieces of the puzzle. I didn't want people to think this was just our only initiative. So thank you. Mr. Moreno.
Thank you, Chair Jordan. I'm very proud of this campaign. And this campaign is being executed in partnership with Vision Zero Truckee Meadows. And so, as you all know, the Vision Zero Truckee Meadows Task Force is comprised of multiple agencies across northern Nevada. And so when we shared this presentation with them, they were all delighted to see that it looks very effective and a campaign message that would resonate very well with the community. One of the taglines for this campaign is, "Communities thrive when pedestrians and drivers work together." So we are hopeful that people who come across a toolkit and come across a message will share this message with one another, with their families, their friends, their coworkers, with their employees, because we do want to get to zero fatalities sooner than later, but hopefully by 2030, we'll achieve the goal of Vision Zero to have zero fatalities by 2030. On behalf of the Abbey Agency and the RTC staff, I want to thank you all for your leadership, your guidance, and your vision to help us create a safer community for all of us here in Northern Nevada. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions? Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Marino. Thank you, Shawnee. Thank you, Ben. It's a great program. I love the proactive approach, but here's the problem. How do you figure out how to get people off of these things while they're walking? And drivers, my car happens to be in the shop, so I'm driving my wife's car. Mine's an older one. I drive a 2008. My wife's is a little newer, 2015. It's got so much stuff going on that it's distracting. And so I'm wondering, as we move towards LiDAR for our engineering department, can we get ooh. Who doesn't love Hendrix?
After this brief musical interlude.
That's right. Who doesn't love Hendrix? I'm wondering if we can get LiDAR hooked up into these things so that when I approach an intersection, it comes up on my phone, or that it communicates with the vehicles. Are we thinking about those kinds of apps?
We can be thinking about those kinds of apps. Distractions are aplenty, and changing behavior is going to be, that's a challenge for all of us, not just right here in Washoe County, but across the nation and around the world. Technology is rapidly changing, but not quick enough for some things that we need. Certainly I can get with the engineering department to see what we can do to make the connection with LiDAR, with smart devices. I know that technology is advancing to a certain degree. For example, I have an iPhone that shuts off when I'm driving so that I'm not distracted. So maybe we take it to the next step to see what other things we can do for pedestrians at an intersection, perhaps. The LiDAR triggers something that disables the phone when you're crossing the street. So those are those type of things that we're having discussion about. Again, right here in Washoe County, that's a lot of money. So what we need to do is perhaps voice these opportunities for improvements so that industry leaders can also help us reach that goal to help technology advance to the level that we need it to improve safety for everybody.
No, and I understand, so I guess, and it would be interesting to see of the number of fatalities that went back and related to distracted, either walking or driving, or both.
Yeah.
So just so that we have some of that data in our pocket, and I know it's advancing, I know it's something in the future, but when we were kids, these things didn't exist. So there was no opportunity to be distracted by that, at least. I'm not saying that there weren't fatalities. I'm not saying that there weren't just as many, but I get a sneaking suspicion, and it was even in one of the videos, the kids walking across the street, and I've seen it 100 times, people just walking across the street looking at their phone, and they're not paying attention to their surroundings. And so that becomes it doesn't matter if you're not locking eyes, if you're not even aware of your surroundings, it doesn't work. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And as I recall, I think the LiDAR technologies were looking at not only an option where as you approached a crosswalk and it could sense whether you were driving or walking, it would potentially make your screen go black so that you would look up. In addition, it would trip the traffic light, so that you would get a green to cross. Because oftentimes, even when we have the buttons to press to turn the flasher on or to trigger a red to a green walk, people don't always press the buttons. And so there are some technological advances. And then, of course, the vehicle that will get to the point, I think it's going to get to the point where when you are driving, your phone is going to, at least to some degree, be disabled so that you're not distracted. I think things are going to have to get to that point. So.
Hopefully there will come a day when all things and all of us are smarter so that we are more aware of the consequences of not paying attention. So Commissioner Hartung, I really appreciate the comments that you have made, and I will take this back to the Vision Zero Task Force so that we can have further discussions to see on how we can make this happen.
There might be a way to, Madam Chair, if I may, there might be a way to do it even just with, with Google Maps and location. That when you're at an intersection and you're physically standing there, that it identifies that you were there, and if you have the app loaded, it just basically alerts you or forces your screen to go black or something of that nature, so that you are paying attention. My phone I set to driver mode, so yeah, I don't get any text messages or any of that stuff when I'm driving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And a big part of this campaign, I know we've had a number of these over the years. Look up, look out. There's a few of them, and again, just constantly evolving them to kind of catch people's attention. This one was really based in the concept of all of us know someone who has been impacted by some sort of incident, whether walking or driving or on a bike. And just to remember that we're, one community, and to recognize and be respectful of that, and understand that that person in that car, on that bike, or on foot is somebody's family member and somebody's loved one. And just getting back to being a conscious community member was a big part of this campaign as well. So loved ones aren't lost. So thank you, Michael, and thank you to the Abbey Agency for your expertise on this. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
If I could just say a couple more words, I would be remiss if I did not express my appreciation and thanks to Abby Whitaker, Ben, Shawnee, and the Abbey Agency team that we had the opportunity to work with to create this campaign. We asked a lot of them, and they delivered. And we have a few more deliverables that we'll be working on. I'm really excited about the Back to School campaign that will be coming up, because as you recall, Chair Darden and Commissioner Delgado, that was an important element for a pedestrian safety campaign, something that we can provide the kids so that they know how to be safe. So thank you very much. Have a great morning.
Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, moving into item 2, public comment. We'll just dive right in. Denise, did you want to give any sort of statement regarding public comment before we begin?
Just that we did receive some public comment electronically. It was emailed to the commissioners last night, and there's a copy of it, all of it, at the dais.
Thank you very much. We'll just dive right in. This is under general public comment under agenda item number 2. We'll start with Chip Evans. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm happy to see that half the county has gone green. This is good. So, good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I want to share my concern that the RTC is actually dangerously off course in sustaining safe, affordable, reliable public transportation, an essential service to many of our elderly, homeless, disabled students, and economically disadvantaged residents. Now, taking a cursory view of the last 2 years under the current management contract, it seems clear to me that failing staff management practices are at the core of the system's inability to meet its contractual requirements. Employers are finding it difficult to attract and retain employees. RTC is no different, and its vulnerability is actually very high. Here are things that trouble me. RTC management contracted to maintain a workforce of 176 drivers. I believe the system currently employs 149. It's not apparent significant steps are underway to close that gap. Top pay rates for long-term employees are perhaps half of the market value for inexperienced CDL drivers. Given rising costs of living in Washoe County, people are not accepting low-paying jobs with limited income growth potential. Drivers know that management has proposed to reduce their hours, perhaps to disqualify them for health insurance, take away many job protections, and offer a paltry wage increase. RTC has a bad reputation among its current drivers, and the community as a place for drivers to work. Management has shown shameful disregard for the health and well-being of its drivers. Management's representation to the press that driver call-ins reflect a union blue flu is untruthful and serves to further erode trust. Management's contingency plans for usual call-ins are either non-existent or grossly inadequate, unlike those of previous management. The number of labor complaints and violations filed for arbitration is far above the levels against previous management. Recently, the vision of riders trying to get to work or school or doctor appointments or to social services waiting in the awful heat for a bus that never comes or comes very late offends everyone with a conscience. And waiving fines for missed trips and missed staffing levels have destroyed the expected accountability. Added together, these issues represent a management disaster for the drivers, those that rely on RTC services, and the taxpayers. And today, the board is seemingly set to reward this failure with a pay raise and bonus for the man who is being held from managing this disaster. I urge the board to appoint an outside resource to advise you, and after review of the current situation, perhaps postpone the pay and bonus discussion on your agenda. I further urge the board to assess whether the current management contract with Keolis Transit should be abandoned. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Our next public comment is from Jenny Breckus.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Breckus. I'm Reno City Council member for Ward 1. I'd like to impress upon the board and RTC management my deep concern about the transit labor strife and the consequences it is having upon my constituents and citizens region-wide. First of all, I've focused upon local public policy in this community for 22 years, and this is the most conflict-ridden labor situation I have observed. I really don't understand how RTC has arrived at this point. The city of Reno, we have good labor relations with those who provide essential services. I have not heard anything contrary that goes on at the other jurisdictions. I just cannot understand how, after the coach operators who are on the front line as essential workers during this pandemic are at the break point of strike. I also want to let you know that prior to coming to council in 2012, this board appointed me to the Transit Advisory Board, where I served for 3 years. From my understanding of the history of this transit system, it is not acceptable or accurate for this board to say that the transit operations are at arm's length and that you are at arm's length to these negotiations. I would encourage the board to ask your staff to provide you with a detailed history of why operations are designed to be at arm's length. From this study, you will understand the anti-organized labor mindset that you've inherited, and you must break away from that. I am concerned about our vulnerable transit-dependent population and the fragile lifeline that the transit system connects them to their daily needs of access to jobs, schools, doctors, childcare, and all other trips that us as auto users take for granted. Please make it your preeminent focus at this time until it is done to reach agreement so that our meager system does not further deteriorate. There are long-term fixes that are necessary for this organization and the funding systems that it has. Those are complex and will not be easy to address, and this situation is an outgrowth of broken systems. This system of labor strife is an outgrowth of broken systems. But this is not the time to wait, to look to or place responsibility upon structural issues. Now is the time to make our transit system working and come to bargaining agreement with these workers. There are vulnerable people in our community relying upon this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Earl Brian Olson.
Good morning, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Earl Brian Nelson, and I am an essential worker. I risked my life and that of my family during the pandemic. I am a bus driver for RTC Ride and Keolis and have been for 13 years. I've also been a member of the SRC Committee, Safety Committee, Bus Stop Committee, also a supervisor and a shop steward. Keolis has brought absolutely nothing to our system. Their entire management team has either been fired, quit, or been removed for suspicion of embezzlement. They were the lowest bidder. RTC got what they paid for: disorganized, uninformed, disconnected, disrespectful, union-busting company. Keolis wants to delete 40 years of history in our collective bargaining agreement, the same one that has been serving this community for 40 years. As successful business and elected officials, I am sure you will agree, a successful company starts with a positive management team. Not one that is here to destroy all we have built in our community. This is our community. RTC Ride is going to forgive all liquidated damages that Keolis has incurred during COVID. That's really nice of them. What did RTC Ride and Keolis do for their workers? Lock us out of our break room, punish workers for getting tested, punish workers for actually getting COVID. RTC may be saving money, but at what cost? Terrible service, record number of missed trips, and the list goes on. The board needs to look at past performance. What happened before Keolis got here and what happened after Keolis got here. It's not all us drivers and workers' faults. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Debbie Calkins.
Good morning, Board. It's nice to see all of you again. I'm Debbie Calkins, Secretary-Treasurer of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Local 533. I am here today on behalf of my membership, the essential workers of Keolis. Of the fixed route bus system between RTC and Keolis, they have distributed false information through the media about routes being missed, blaming all the missed routes on the essential workers who have called off sick. Those sick calls have been minor. They don't even reach 5% of the workforce, which on average is pretty what a company will assume is normal. They're supposed to be at 176 drivers. They currently have 149. That's not even 85% of where they should be. Your narrative is intended to cause strife between the passengers and employees. Please be honest about these essential workers in the future. They have provided a tremendous service during this pandemic to the community. They do not deserve to be treated like a piece of trash at your expense. Commissioner Hartung, when I was last here, you said you believe the essential workers should be rewarded for their service. And I thought that was amazing. I really applauded you. But instead, your contractor wants to strip these essential workers of their good insurance and give them a substandard plan. They also want to strip away about 90% of the protections in that contract that we have had for roughly 40 years. Please do not allow this contractor to do what we know is absolutely not acceptable for our essential workers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Up next is Amanda Nelson, followed by Chastity Lockridge.
Good morning. So I'm being told that Keolis is blaming their missed routes on sick drivers, and drivers do call off, very few. The company is supposed to be prepared for this. Every other transit agency is aware that drivers do get sick. They have extra board drivers to cover these routes. Keolis has been refusing to pay for drivers to be on standby, and therefore when a driver is sick, there's nobody to cover it. There are routes that do not have permanent drivers, and Keolis will not cover those routes because currently the RTC is not imposing the fines for missed trips. So the company has nothing to compel them to fill the routes. They just leave the elderly, the less fortunate, the children, the taxpayers, and the voters standing outside in the sun waiting for a bus that may never come. I personally have not received a phone call to come into work in months. And I used to get those phone calls every single day. Not any of the other drivers have gotten those phone calls either. The company has made no effort to cover these missed routes, and they have no reason to do it because there's no repercussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chastity Lockridge, followed by Andrea, I think it's Gray.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson and board members. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Chastity Lockridge. I've been a coach operator with Keolis and MV Transportation for 8.5 years. I worked during the pandemic. I am an essential worker. And now I say, one second. There has to be a better way. If we're failing our customers, then the companies are failing themselves. It's borderline abuse when you have to change buses multiple times a day, and that bus is sitting in the heat. It literally takes 2 hours to fill with cool air. So those first passengers you pick up get the brunt of the heat for an entire trip. Last week, I had a customer tell me that I like to put puppies and babies in a hot car in the summer for fun because of what they were suffering. Because I had an AC that was not effective, because it was a switch out that sat in the sun, and I had to immediately take on the road. Passenger and driver comfort is just the cost of business, this business. But it seems Keolis wants to cut corners where it matters the most. And I can tell you I drive the route 4 days a week, and those customers know that this company does not care about them. I can go on for 10 minutes on why, but those people are left in the sun and late for work on a daily basis. Same with the Route 6, because we drive these 30-foot Proteras that will not charge. So the driver runs late every day, switching buses back and forth, waiting for a mechanic to come charge the bus. I have ran late up to 40 minutes, which often takes 3 hours to catch up because of this. And these customers run late for those 3 hours. And this is most days. And I should add, because of current practices, results in no breaks. And we have to force a bathroom break when we should be driving, which leads us to be late more. And now Keolis is not calling us for overtime, so it is felt across the board on all routes. I am not received an overtime call since June 24th. Prior to this, I got up to 3 calls a day if I would come in. So there is no incentive for them to cover routes if there's no repercussions for missed trips. There has to be a better way. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you very much. Andrea Gray, followed by Lisa Hickman.
Good morning. I'd like to say a lot of drivers do not make $23 an hour. I started October 2019, and now I make $20.49. The ridership think that with our fault, the roads are canceled, but it's not true. A lot of buses breaking down right and left due not enough parts for the buses, especially for the Gilligs. We have some brand new flyers, duct tape on it. Why? So, and I'd like to say, the minority, the bus drivers, do not trust or believe Keolis what you're saying. Because since day one, they lie to us. They broke every promise. They follow rules. They want to follow rules. That's it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Lisa Hickman, followed by Carlos Elizondo.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the RTC Board. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Lisa Hickman. I'm a bus driver at Keolis. But I am also a single mom and a member of this community for 32 years. I am an essential worker and worked the entire time during this pandemic to keep the community moving. The health and safety of us bus drivers have been seriously jeopardized by my managers and supervisors' refusal to comply with legally binding masks and safety mandates. I have never worked for a company that has zero compassion for their employees, where I was told not to follow federal and state mandates, basically to break the law, to let passengers ride even maskless and not to deny them or be disciplined. My biggest fear is leaving my kids parentless. I was terrified I was going to get sick. I have underlying conditions. I might die. But I had no choice but to work because I also was not allowed to miss work or again, be disciplined. I had to work to keep our household with food and shelter. And to date, this policy is still not fully followed. If we have a complaint about a passenger not complying to the federal mandates, we have no control or authority to do anything about it. But to call in, but when we call in to get help in a route, usually a supervisor is busy driving a route and can't come to help us. When are we going to be safe? I've seen this company deteriorate and never seen anything like this before, and they have no regard for their employees. Keolis wants to take away 40 years of our collective bargaining agreement. They want to take us down to 30 hours, which would also deprive me of my health insurance because they don't have to provide it during a time in need when we're still in the middle of this pandemic. And without 40 hours, I won't be able to support my family. RTC needs to stand up for us essential workers of the bus system. We are the heart and soul of it out there. I'm speaking for myself and thinking for many of the other drivers. We do this job because we love it. I love seeing my regulars and being an advocate to help some of the special needs in this community, as I also have special need kids. Or to be someone's human contact for the day that treats them like a person, not just homeless and dirty. RTC needs to stand up for this community to have a reliable transit system. One of my children who has special needs was caught up in one of these missed trips last week and left on the side of the road in this heat. The crazy thing is, the route wasn't listed. I believe that's an RTC problem and a customer service issue. Why weren't they being listed? Why isn't Keolis being accountable to the public? I've taught my kids to look at the website and NextBus because I have an inside connection of known problems. So shame on RTC for failing them. I believe Keolis is not filling these routes because they don't have to and not being held accountable. Why should they fill them if they can save money? No employees to pay or a fine. I wasn't even called on my day off, which was Monday.
Thank you very much. Your time is up. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to say I'm sorry that your riders need, but we also need us bus drivers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carlos Elizondo, followed by Edward, I'm going to mess the last name up here, Og, followed by Susan Og.
Good morning. My name is Carlos. One day I spent most of the day waiting for a bus on Virginia Street. Most of the time that I spent was waiting for the bus. I spent most of the day waiting for the bus on Virginia Street, either for the 1 or the Virginia line. And you gotta negotiate this agreement, as soon as possible. Thinking about, what passengers are going through. This has been in the 3 digits, hot. And the drivers keep your business going, The position that you have is because you have drivers. You don't have no drivers, everything is gone, stops everything, You won't be there, sitting there. So you gotta, do something about it, negotiate something, do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Edward Og? Is that right? Okay. Thank you. Followed by Susan Og.
Good morning, members of the RTC board. My name is Edward Og. I have been an RTC driver for the past 38 years. I've seen many changes to the transit service in that time. As an employee of RTC Ride, we were essential workers during this pandemic, and we have all risked our health and safety, as well as health and safety of our families, for this essential public service during the pandemic. Your contractor does not think that of value and has put forth a minimal effort for the safety of its employees and the riding public. Hiring the lowest bidder has been a disaster for the transit service and the people that utilize it. The current contractor has no interest in our community. They only wish to bleed as much money as they can and send it out of here. As a taxpayer and voter in this community, I think that the RTC board is misguided in not levying the fines that Keolis agreed to when they were awarded this contract. They are not being responsible to the RTC or this community. This money that is owed is owed to the taxpayers of the community for failure to provide the service that they agreed to. Keolis wants to turn the professional drivers, essential workers, into a minimum wage temporary job. They cannot fill the vacancies that they have, let alone retain people at the current wage and benefit package. What do you think will happen to the service if they are allowed to continue to trash the system? And I would like to remind all of you that you were elected to look out for the interests of the community, not the corporate interests of an out-of-state and out-of-country company. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Susan Ogg, followed by John Hester.
Good morning, Washoe County board members. My name is Susan Ogg. I safely served the Reno community for the past 36 years as a coach operator as well as a trainer. I am an essential worker. During this pandemic, Keolis has operated under unsafe conditions. They failed to enforce the federal mask mandate to employees, including management, and the riding public. Also, they failed to enforce the 6 feet distancing mandate and had overcrowding of buses and a shuttle that was overcrowded. They failed to boost routes. If you called in, they didn't seem to really care. They failed to provide us with any COVID cleaning products. Drivers relieve each other. One driver could have COVID, the next driver could take over that steering wheel and the driver area and be contaminated. My father's 90 years old. They didn't seem to care whether I brought that home and gave it to him or not. I've worked here over 36 years. I have excellent service record. It's obvious that all of our livelihoods are in jeopardy. Keolis has failed to acknowledge our union, Teamsters Local 533, and seems determined to eliminate the safe working conditions and benefits we have worked so hard to acquire over the last 35 years at the expense of taxpayers and the riding public. It seems that they would like to force a strike. That's not our wish. Anyway, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. John Hester is our final public commenter. If there's anybody else in the room who would like to speak during general public comment, please make sure to fill out a form with the clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Commission members. I'm John Hester, Deputy Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer for TRPA. And I don't want to ask that you pull this item. I'd like you to leave it on 4.10, but I do want to take this opportunity on behalf of TRPA, TTD, and TART to thank you for continuing to be a partner with us, especially this summer as we're doing the pilot study that Senator Cortez Masto announced last year with flex service to Incline Village and Sand Harbor. The mobility hub that we are asking you to help us with the local match on is a critical part of implementing our regional transportation plan and provides a facility that works for TTD, for TART, and even for RTC if you choose to do that. So I just want to tell you we've worked with your staff. I think we've put in contingencies to protect every possible outcome. And thank you again, and thank Mr. Thomas for all the work he's done, and let you know that I'm here, Carl Hasty, the TTD General Manager, and Andy Chapman from the Incline Village Crystal Bay Visitors Authority is here too, and we're happy to answer any questions if you have them, but otherwise we just want to thank you and ask that you approve that item on your consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming down and saying thank you. Okay, at this time, Madam Clerk, I believe we're moving on to item 3, the approval of the agenda. Director Thomas, I believe we have some items that we are pulling today.
Yes, Madam Chair. We are pulling items 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3. The reason we're pulling those is the first item, 6.1, is our consultant did not have a presentation to provide, or wasn't able to provide additional information from the last presentation they gave, so we felt there was not a minimal value to that. The second two items, 6.2 and 6.3, I am recommending be pulled in consultation with the chair because we don't have a full board here. And I personally felt like it's most important for an annual evaluation like this to include all the board members. So in order to give all the board members an opportunity to participate, we pulled those items off the agenda.
Thank you very much. Do any members have any questions or comments at this time? Member Lawson.
So, I can never tell. I'll just yell. Should we pull 6.4 though? I'm thinking the director's goals and the RTC goals should be the same, or they should be similar, or they should emphasize getting those goals accomplished.
Certainly, in response, if I may, though there is an interconnection, even though they're not necessarily overlapping, perhaps if the board would like, depending on how you want this meeting to go, it'd be beneficial to hear those, and you can decide if you want to act on them or wait until you get my goals as they're connected to the agency goals. But we did feel like two things. One is we presented these goals when the budget was presented. I think the board at that time had asked for us to bring this back for further discussion and also to present to you what the funding sources would be for each. So that's what we prepared today. I'm fine and the staff is fine with handling it however you want.
So there's no time sensitivity if we push it to incorporate with the other reviews?
No, there isn't.
Okay. I agree with Member Lawson that we should continue this item as well. So with the consideration of continuing items 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4, may I, to a future meeting, may I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7.1, Executive Director Report.
What about consent?
Oh, my apologies. We're going back to consent because that was the general. Consent items. Is there any items to poll for discussion? Seeing none, may I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, we are now to item 7.1. 5.1. Yeah, you guys are throwing me all off. Public hearing, conduct a public hearing on proposed service changes to RTC ride. Good morning.
Good morning, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Jim Gee, Service Plan and Innovation Manager for the RTC. And I have a very short presentation regarding some proposed service changes for this coming fall. Thank you, Denise. There we go. We have one change that we're proposing, and that is a change in the span of service for the Virginia line. Just as a reminder for the commissioners, the Virginia line Rapid is our highest ridership route. It's about 1 out of every 7 passenger trips system-wide is on the Virginia line. It is the route that serves from Meadowood Mall to downtown Reno, and most recently was extended from downtown Reno up to the UNR campus. It is the spine of our transit system. And that extension, which included improvements in Midtown, opened in March of this year. With the extension to UNR, that brings in a significant audience that we want to attract, and that is the over 20,000 students, faculty, and staff on the UNR campus. And so with that in mind, we propose to extend the evening services to attract especially those students to try our service. This proposal would start on Sunday, August 1st, which allows it to start before the beginning of school, but also coincides with some of the special events in downtown Reno. Currently on weekdays, the Virginia line stops at 9:30 p.m., and we are proposing to add service to 1:30 a.m. On Saturdays, service currently stops at 8:30 p.m., and we are proposing to extend that to 1:30 a.m., and then on Sundays, currently it stops at 8:30 p.m., and we're proposing extending that to 11:30 p.m. Again, the primary audience for this change is the students and the other consumers on the UNR campus, and it coincides with a marketing campaign that we are doing to engage those students to try public transit. The other additional change that we have is not a service change, but I wanted to bring it to the commissioners for awareness, and that is the installation of new electric bus charging infrastructure at Centennial Plaza, which is our station in Sparks. What this additional charging infrastructure will do is give us increased flexibility in how we allocate our electric buses. For the passenger side, it will be no changes in timing, but it may impact what bay the bus stops at because we'll be charging those buses at Centennial Plaza. But operationally, it should bring some really good improvements in terms of how we allocate the electric buses, how we build more charging events in for the service. And those changes would start on September 11th. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the service changes.
Thank you very much. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments about this issue? We're confirming. We've had one member step out. We want to make sure we were good with that. I do have some, I think this is fantastic. I think capturing the student and faculty at UNR is tremendous. And I did see the campaign. I think the campaign to kind of, as particularly as school comes back in and get them to ride is a great thing. To some of the questions that were brought up earlier, some of the public comment about capacities, we're expanding some routes. How are we going to best ensure that we have appropriate staffing for an expanded route?
So the service that we're expanding adds about 65 hours per week. Fortunately, this expansion is in our off-peaks. It's in the late evenings, it's on the weekends, so it does not add extra buses to the road and impact our peak requirement.
Okay, that's helpful. Any other members? Our attorney wants to chime in here. What's happening?
Madam Chair, because this is a specific public hearing item, I would recommend we also formally open it for any public comment.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, we are opening the public hearing. Was there any correspondence received? Public notice given and correspondence received?
Public notice was given and no public comment has been received.
Thank you very much. We'll get back in the groove of these live meetings here pretty soon. Any other members have any questions or comments? Okay, when does this launch again?
The service changes for the Virginia line would start on August 1st with the electric bay infrastructure changes on September 11th.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we are now, I believe, onto item 7.1, Executive Director Report.
I believe we need to take a motion.
Oh,
on
may I get a
5.1.
motion? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Now we're on to item 7.1. Executive Director Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. Have a couple items I wanted to talk about this morning. First is in recognition, I would describe in recognition of the many changes that we've seen in the community, both in downtown Sparks and downtown Reno. There's been, I would say, a need and at least a desire by many to revisit the transportation network in downtown Reno, specifically Virginia Street. In great part related to many of the changes in terms of the nature of how downtown Reno has changed from primarily, if not only gaming, to more of a urban neighborhood and how that affects transportation. So to that end, we've initiated a partnership with the city of Reno to look at specifically Virginia Street, but more importantly, Virginia Street as it relates to Center Street and the cycle track and all methods of transportation downtown, including buses, bicycles, and pedestrians. The RTC will be, as the current arrangement is set up, will be providing half of the funding for this study to be completed, and I would describe it more as a placemaking study to make sure that as we plan for the transportation network, we're in sync with what the long-term vision is for downtown Reno, particularly Virginia Street, so that any public funds that we spend are on target with what the community is looking for that particular geographic area. That would be a study that's envisioned to be at about $150,000, so we would be contributing half of that, and Reno would be making up the other half. As we get to the details, we will certainly bring that back to the board in terms of any agreement between the City of Reno and RTC related to that. But I did want to make you aware of those conversations and the direction that's underway in dealing with that. It does have and will be presented, I think, in your cycle track update presentation you'll get next month. And hopefully we'll have some more details on the progress of that study when we bring that back next month.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you very much. This is really good. I think this is really important. I think what people get sometimes frustrated with is if there is, we implement some sort of an improvement and then a development or something changes and that improvement gets impacted and people say, well, why didn't you evaluate that before you put the something in or tore the something out? You know, looking at the bigger 30,000-foot question. So I appreciate this, looking at it more holistically. My questions are, how long do we think it will take to complete this study? In other words, when will we get some results back? And will you be coordinating with the prior urban planning studies that have already had taxpayer expenses to do them, whether it was ULI or PUMA? Will you be incorporating those in some fashion or referring to them? And will you be involving the Downtown Reno Partnership, who is intimately involved with the economic development of downtown?
Short answer, Madam Chair, is yes to all those questions. We certainly feel like any information that or studies that have been done up to now are critical in terms of where the starting point for this analysis. In conversation with senior Reno staff, who will be the lead on this project, we're thinking about a 6-month horizon. So the idea is to not start from scratch, use all the knowledge and information we have a very robust stakeholder engagement process, including specifically the Downtown Reno Partnership, but also the public in general, as well as the businesses downtown. So the idea is to have a very robust, but very targeted and very, I would say, short time frame window to get this done, because it is time sensitive and important, I think, to get some answers sooner than later.
Thank you very much. And I think it's important to say for the public as well that this isn't just a road project and a road study. This is a kind of a bigger view of what the vision is for downtown and Center Street and the whole sort of area. And I will say probably one of the most critical components in that visioning is the participation by the property owners to be participants. What do I mean by that? I don't think anybody wants to put in a number of street improvements at great expense on a block-long concrete wall. The participation by the property owners in downtown need to be a part of this and opening up their facilities to the street level and activating those spaces. I don't think it does anybody any good to put in all sorts of infrastructure, multimodal infrastructure, to have it run alongside of block-long concrete walls. So I have said that before. I will continue to say that. This is an all-hands-on-deck, private and public sector, as part of this visioning and execution of this. So, thank you. Member Delgado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with everything that you just stated. What I didn't hear you say, Bill, is also an opportunity to work closely with the university. Fortunate enough to work closely with, not closely, but presented yesterday to the renaming committee with respect of the renaming of some of the streets. Yesterday, President Sandoval was in the process of looking at renaming Center Street to University Way. So it just kind of shows you the direction or the opportunities that the community's viewing into the chair's position is if there's not additional support from other property owners around, then we've got to look to see where the synergy is and the opportunities are for the more synergy between the university and downtown area. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any other members have any questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll certainly take all of those opinions and thoughts and weigh them in as we move forward with this process. Earlier this week, I'm very proud to say that our staff did an excellent job, again, like they always do, in submitting what I say is a very high quality raise grant to the Federal Highway Administration. We submitted on behalf of RTC and the community a grant request of $10 million to apply towards the Arlington Bridges project. And that grant should be ruled on or evaluated in a decision made hopefully in early fall or at the latest early winter. So I'm very proud of the team turning that in, and hopefully we'll get a good result. In addition, I did want to bring up and thank both Senators Cortez Masto and Rosen, who each submitted the project, the Arlington Bridges project, to the Senate Appropriations Committee with an appropriations request of $2 million for the project. My understanding is that at the Senate level, there was an agreement in terms of what the limitations were on what each member would get. And I'm very proud to say that both of our senators in the $4 million allocation that they're allowed put the Arlington Street Bridge project in for half of what they could ask for. So,
Wait. I think we just lost quorum.
Madam Chair, I might recommend a brief pause.
Yeah, we're going to pause for just a second. We lost quorum. You weren't gone? Sorry, Director Thomas.
not a problem. In addition, I would say, and I think I announced at the last meeting, that Congressman Amadei had also put in a request for $6 million for the Arlington Street project and the House side. And later on, I'll talk about what we understand is going on in terms of Congress's funding and how they're moving forward with their budget. But I just wanted to, again, share with the board and the community that we put in that request and are very hopeful in getting some federal support on our local need for an important bridge project. Next thing I'd like to announce is we've done an announcement for a call for projects for the Transportation Alternatives, what we call TA set-aside program for the RTC Metropolitan Planning Area. Applications for the TA set-aside program will be accepted until October 1st, 2021 by 4 p.m. The estimated amount of the TA set-aside funding is, for fiscal years 21 and 22, is approximately $800,000. Agencies eligible to receive TA set-aside funds include local governments, natural resources or public land agencies, school districts, and tribal governments. Eligible sponsors may submit one application per funding year. Program information, the application is available on the RTC website, and I would point out that there is a match requirement as part of that funding program. So just wanted to get that out broadly and share, if you will, with your staffs as well as any qualifying members I listed there, the availability of these funds, which will be competitively evaluated. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the new Keolis General Manager, Phil Pumphrey. Over the past 3 decades, Phil has worked for First Transit in many positions as Executive Director, General Manager, and Assistant General Manager positions around the nation. Phil brings excellent managerial skills and transit experience to his new role as the RIDE General Manager. As he makes his way to he's already here at the podium. Please join me in welcoming Phil. And Phil, if you take this opportunity maybe to do some introductory comments, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Thomas. Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'm Phil Pumphrey, new General Manager. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to improve customer service, workplace relationships, and as duly noted, I was here for the comments today. And I'm looking to work to provide the best possible service to the community. And just as a side note, I've actually been in this field almost 40 years. I started as a driver and worked my way up. So I am very familiar with the opportunity that's here available. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
We look forward to working with you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. So when did you start?
Last Wednesday.
Okay, so you're just getting your feet under you. I'm glad you were here for the public comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I still got the shiny on it. I was still trying to find where to park and all those fun things. Any commissioners have any questions or comments at this time? Okay, seeing none. Welcome aboard.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're moving on, I believe. Are you finished or you have more?
No, I have more.
Okay.
Sorry to take so much time.
No,
I have
that's
two
fine.
more things that I wanted to mention to the board under my report. Don't Drive, Arrive is our new program with free transit service to Hot August Nights, August 3rd through the 8th. RTC, in partnership with Hot August Nights, with the Hot August Nights organization, is offering free rides on the Rapid Virginia Line, Rapid Lincoln Line, and routes 1 and 11 all day long during the week of Hot August Nights. These routes serve both RTC 4th Street Station as well as RTC Centennial Plaza. It's a great opportunity to try transit for you and your friends and family to one of the region's favorite events. With limited parking, everyone can ride these routes free and avoid parking hassles, as well as venues in downtown Sparks, downtown Reno, and the venues on Virginia Street. To plan a trip and view the route and schedule information, please go to rtcwashoe.com. For Hot August Nights event schedule, go to hotaugustnights.net, and I believe we're displaying for you the graphic that will be presented publicly in many locations to make people aware of this program and hopefully encourage its use. Lastly, I wanted to, it was a little bit off of my comments, but I do think it's relevant given some of the conversations that's been going on. Recently, there have been some statements made in the media that leave the public with the impression that RTC is considering whether we will continue to contract with private companies that specialize in operating the transit system. These statements erroneously represent that RTC is in a position to take over the operation of the transit system. I believe it's important at this point for me publicly to correct these misstatements. First, RTC has contracted with private companies to operate the transit system in our community for over 30 years. So this is not a new thing or a different thing. This has been going on for 30 years in terms of us outsourcing this service. Second, we're in the early years of a 10-year contract with Keolis to provide ride transit service that extends up to 2029. Third, I think it's important for all to understand our operating model and how we as RTC work. We're a relatively small organization consisting of 66 employees that has consistently performed well before I got here, and very proud to say we're continuing to do it in an efficient and effective way that is mindful of the fact that we use public funds. We provide regional transportation planning, regional road projects, and transit services in large part by contracting with private companies. These companies provide specialized services that we could not replicate ourselves without major service and cost impacts. 95% of RTC's revenue is spent on contracts for specialized services, which I would point out also supports local jobs in our economy. Only 5% of the RTC revenues are used for internal operations and administrative costs. I'm very proud of the fact that our team has in the past, and we continue to be very effective in terms of how we use the public funds. There are no plans now or in the foreseeable future for RTC to change this operating model. So even though that's been put out to the public that somehow that is on the table or that's a point of conversation, I think it was very important for me to say today that that isn't in consideration. There are certainly issues that are going on in terms of our transit operations that need to be debated and discussed, but one of them is not that RTC would step into operating the transit systems directly ourselves. So that was the last comment I wanted to make. I appreciate your patience, and thank you for giving me that chance to make those comments.
Thank you very much. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments with regards to the director's report? Okay. Seeing none, moving on to item 7.2, federal report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I wish that this maybe was a little longer and I could give you some specificity, but I think anybody who's been watching what's going on, and certainly in your report and in public documents, are the details of what's happened at the federal level. I would I would paraphrase it as there appears to be a lot of interest in Congress in providing money for infrastructure and transportation. Recently, the House passed the Invest in America Act that included an 11% increase in the transportation portion of the bill. However, as we all know, in order for the funding to be consummated, there needs to be concurrence at the Senate level, and I know the Senate has been working on their version of it. There's belief from our lobbyists that this will move fairly quickly, but there's a lot of uncertainty in exactly how the funding will come forward. I guess I would share with you, it looks like there'll be more funding available for transportation issues. How much and where it will go seems to be a little uncertain right now, but the minute we know and have specificity, we'll be sure to share it with you and the public.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the federal report?
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud. That's it. Okay, moving on. NDOT report. Welcome.
Good morning. It's good to be here. I was thinking on my way in here that I just wanted to share with you. I don't know if you know this from before the pandemic, but I try to ride the bus as much as I can. When I'm up here, I ride the bus. Well, up here or down there, I ride the bus on Wednesdays if I can. This week it was twice, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And I appreciate the service. I appreciate the ability to do so. It was interesting. I think it was one of my first tweets back on the bus. So like late May, early June, when I got back on the bus, and I had someone, a younger member of our community up here in Reno, reach out and was surprised and shocked to learn that there was a bus to Carson because they had turned down an opportunity for an internship because they didn't know how they would be able to get to Carson to do that job. And so just reiterating a lot of, and not in that space, but just how critically important transit service is. And I hope one day to run into one of you on the bus. I mean, obviously I'm going to Carson, you're going to other places, but it would be great to hear your experiences when you ride the bus. So when I'm able to ride the bus, it is the best part of my day. It's just a great way to get started. So anyway, it's good to be here. I'm going to start as I normally do with safety. As you can see, the story is not good. Overall, on a statewide basis, we are up 32% from the same time last year. And if you recall, numbers were high last year too, over the 19 numbers, which were actually, 19 numbers were lower. So year over year, it's bad. Year over 2 years, it's worse. The good news is, I guess it's good news in Washoe, you're still at the same level you were last year. So if there's good news in this, you're not higher like the rest of the state and many of the other counties. We also did see some slight decreases in the rates of motorcyclist and pedestrian fatalities so far this year on Washoe. But in June, a bicyclist was hit and killed on the network in Washoe County, whereas no bicyclists had lost their lives at this point last year. So bicyclist numbers are up. And then the other thing that is concerning, and we talked about, I think, a little bit about this previous this year, or maybe it was last year, was unrestrained motorist fatalities in Washoe County are up 150% year over year. So we've got to figure out how to get drivers to do the things that are important for drivers to do to keep themselves safe. Primary causes continue to be traffic impairment and speeding. And I want to share a story. My notes say of a speed-related fatality. This is not just a speed-related fatality. It is like all of the things. A female driver of a black Acura sedan was traveling westbound on I-80 near Robb Drive at a high rate of speed and hit a semi-truck as she was attempting to pass on the outside shoulder. All right, so not just speeding, but also passing on the outside shoulder. She lost control, crossed into the oncoming lanes, and struck a second semi. The driver of the sedan was not wearing a seatbelt, I just talked about that, and was killed in the crash. Her passenger was also injured and transported to the hospital. You probably heard about this crash. It shut down I-80 for the better part of the morning last week in both directions. There are some other things that are being investigated along with the crash itself. The passenger involved faces charges for attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, possession of a firearm, firing a gun from and into a car. Those were some of the other things that were with this. But just a reminder, nothing is so important for us to get to, that it's worth the risk of simply the time delay if a cop pulls you over for speeding. I mean, like that's the least risk, right? Is that you might get pulled over and have that time delay. And if you thought you were going to be 5 minutes late, now you're 30 minutes late, right? But what if you actually get involved in a crash? You might survive, but what about the other person? And I think just really a reminder of our role as drivers in keeping the network safe for ourselves and everybody else on it. So I sometimes feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but when these things happen, it impacts our network and it impacts everybody else on our network. If you needed to get from California or from further parts west on I-80, you could not get into the valley last Wednesday morning. I think it was Wednesday, or Thursday. It impacts our system, not just the people on the system. So, all right, legislative impacts. So, done, right? Legislative impacts. We tracked over 100 bills and bill draft requests throughout the session. Of those, 36 bills were deemed by our team to have had at least some impact on our program. Of those, only a handful were expected to have a significant impact on the program. And we previously talked about the 4 bills that we were behind. Our 4 bills, those all passed. We're excited about those. But the bill that I'm most excited about actually wasn't our bill. And I'm most excited about it because it stands to have the largest impact on our program. Not today, not tomorrow, but in the future. It was AB 413, which required us, NDOT, to convene an advisory working group to study issues related to sustainable transportation funding, specifically for the highway fund, but in light of a couple of things. So in light of social and user equity, a lot of people think that the gas tax is fantastic, it works, why change it? It does have some equity issues. There are some baked-in equity issues that we could possibly address and improve. And also in light of the state's goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector. As cars become more fuel efficient, as more EVs hit the system, obviously that impacts us and our revenue, and our ability to maintain and deliver the system that's needed for a rapidly growing state. So speaking of rapid growth, we are also required to look at the role that land use and smart growth strategies can play in transportation costs, reducing emissions, improving system efficiency and equity. So we are going to be looking at a whole lot of things. We had our first meeting. It was sort of a toe in the water meeting. It was a 2-hour virtual meeting on Tuesday. Bill was with us at it. It was virtual. Our first face-to-face meeting. The advisory working group consists of up to 30, between 20 and 30. We have 29 slots filled. We may still fill that 30th if we can find somebody. We're planning on having the meetings in person in Vegas and Reno and streamed to each other. For most of them, the hard decision meetings, we're probably going to have all of the group in person at one location. There's a lot to do in this space. But really, we are underfunded at NDOT by over $500 million a year. So if you think about that, that's the equivalent of our program, of our capital program. And if we don't have that money, we have these conversations, right? Why don't you? Can't you? We don't have the revenue to do it. And that's today, and that's exclusive of continued growth. It's exclusive of continued cost increases. And it's exclusive of the fact that the revenue on a per mile basis is continuing to be degraded. So I am really excited about this. It is going to be a heavy lift for the 30 members of this team. We have a really strong consultant on this. They've done this before with other states. They've helped shepherd through these hard conversations. So I'm excited to be working with the team, which consists of us, the RTCs, the other 2 MPOs, and then also a significant number of members of the community representing different interests that may be impacted by this and have interest in the outcome. So the consultant was led by Milestone, and they have recently been acquired by CDM Smith. So. But that group also, it's a When we hired them, just for a little more context, when we hired them, we knew that we had this part of we hoped, we were looking forward to having this charge, but we didn't know what the next stages are. So the group is pretty diverse in that there's they have a broad team. It's not just that one consultant. They have a broad team to help us should we need them to shepherd through the next legislative session, shepherd us possibly through a ballot initiative, or we're hoping to have the same consistent team help flex us as we move forward. And that's something that we're going to be talking about with the working group. The working group's job is not done in December of next year when we deliver our report. Whatever our recommendation is, we're going to be leaning on that working group to help us shepherd that recommendation through the legislature and get us to a path where we have the revenue we need to make sure that all of the people in our community can get to where they need to go when they need to be there. Oh, and transit's part of it, right? Because we're not going to fix it if we're all relying on driving our own car, whether it's driving us or we're driving it. Whatever that future looks like, we won't be able to do that if we're all in our own car. So transit is also a key part. All right. SBX update. This one's really long, so I apologize in advance, but it's really long. It's important, though, so I'm going to go through all of it. I'm probably going to lean on my notes a little more than I normally might. So crews are continuing to work on all aspects of the project, including bridge construction, neighborhood walls, and utility work. Next week, drivers will start to see intermittent overnight closures of Mill Street underneath 580 as crews install the bridge girders. Major 580 lane and merge changes that we're calling the big ramp up will launch later this month as we open new southbound I-580 braided ramps to 2nd and Mill Street. So this will modify ramp access at 2nd and Mill. The ramps will remain open, but they are going to be different. They're going to be reconfigured. So in late July and early August, the southbound 580 exits to 2nd and Mill will be combined into one new frontage road just south of the current 2nd Street exit. And I was hoping to have a video of this. We will provide a video for your newsletter so that you can put it in if you want, and we'll provide a link later. So they'll combine into one, and if you, just south of the existing 2nd exit, and if you want to go to 2nd, you're just going to stay to the right and loop over to 2nd. If you want to go to Mill, you're just going to stay straight through. There's examples of these dual exit ramps across the state. People have used them, but if you want to exit to 2nd, it'll be the same primary exit, and then you'll split once you leave 580. The 2nd and Mill Streets on-ramp to southbound 580 will also be combined into one temporary frontage road. Drivers entering southbound 580 from 2nd will travel the new frontage road to reach the combined ramp at 2nd and Mill Street. So 2nd Mill and 580. The drivers traveling this ramp will yield to and merge with Mill Street off-ramp traffic. And we're doing this, so there's a video at ndotspaghettibowl.com to view an animation of how that looks. And we're doing this really because we want to, those interchanges are so closely spaced that a large part of the breakdown on southbound 580 is due to the merging and weaving that happens between those two interchanges. And so by pulling much of that traffic off into basically completing one, there's one off, there's one on now instead of two, it will improve safety and reliability along the corridor. Another temporary ramp closure is also coming this summer. Over the next month, we're going to temporarily close the Wells Avenue on-ramp to eastbound I-80 for approximately 40 days. As crews begin reconfiguring the bottom of the eastbound 80 to southbound 580 Spaghetti Bowl ramp, they'll have to temporarily reduce the current 2-lane eastbound I-80 Spaghetti Bowl ramp to 1 lane, and closing the Wells Avenue on-ramp will reduce travel lanes and merging leading into this reduced work zone. So again, improving safety. This is a improving safety during construction method. So we're going to have to close Wells on-ramp to eastbound I-80 for about 40 days later this summer. And then just a couple of other things. We do expect demolition of the bridge crossing over the railroad and 4th Street to take place in late July or early August. And there will likely be some short-term closures of 4th Street to accommodate the work when that happens. The contractor is continuing to coordinate with first responders biweekly and following the project's transportation management plan, and we're still on schedule for substantial completion late fall of next year. So, I was thinking about that when I was driving, and I was looking at it, and I was like, oh, this is probably going to be a big pinch for a lot of people as we get into these next stages, but also just how cool it is to know that our team members are out there, they're working, they're helping drive our economy forward, and they're helping build a system that's going to work for Reno for the long term. So it may hurt a little bit in the short term, but it's going to have a good output in the long term. So, all right, Mount Rose Corridor Study public meeting. I think I mentioned earlier this year or late last year that we had a public meeting on the Mount Rose Corridor Study. It was in January was the first one, and it was all online. In August, we're excited to be holding our second public meeting to gather further community feedback. We're finalizing those meeting specifics, and we'll keep the community updated at dot.nv.gov/Mount Rose. The planning will define a shared vision for the lower segment of the Mount Rose Highway. The corridor currently sees over 20,000 vehicles per day, up from 15,000 in 2014. And we only expect that to continue as development along the corridor continues to increase. This study is, as I've mentioned before, it basically goes from the roundabout all the way up to Douglas Fir. So it's a significant amount of the corridor. We anticipate the corridor master plan should be completed later this year and will provide a high-level vision for potential options to improve safety and mobility for all types along the corridor. We will, of course, coordinate with Washoe County, City of Reno, Nevada Highway Patrol, and our partners here at the RTC as we develop the study and the plan. I should note that we're also currently working on looking at some concrete median islands and lengthened turn pockets on Mount Rose Highway at Callahan. And we are looking at reconfiguring the median islands and turn lanes to channelize and enhance traffic between the highway at Edmonton, as well as looking at finding a way to possibly construct a shared use path between Thomas Creek and Edmonton. So we have some shorter term work that we're working on, as well as the longer term high level vision of the project. And then I was in Vegas last week, sweating my tail off when you guys were shaking around up here. And and I got to watch my team shake all around in a meeting. We were in a virtual meeting, and that was fun. All of a sudden, they quit paying attention to whatever I was saying because they were shaking. But if you didn't feel it, you were probably not here. As I understand, the majority of the region felt it. It was an interesting earthquake in that it was reported much lower than what it was actually finally reported at. Normally, the adjustments are not that significant, but it started, I think, at a 4.8, ended up at a 5.9. Yeah, or a 6. I've heard both. We, of course, mobilized our team. We actually have a system that we partner with the USGS. It helps identify where we need to target our effort when we have an earthquake in the state. It helps identify. Unfortunately, there was such a cluster of earthquakes that it didn't kick out the information as fast as we would have liked it to. So we went old school, and we used our typical strategy, and we're like, well, what's the range? How big was the earthquake? What's the range? How far out do we need to look? And we rapidly deployed our teams across the region to really inspect visual inspections of bridges and major routes within 75 miles of the epicenter. We did not sustain any visible damage on our system. You may know that 395 south of State Line in California was closed for a bit. They had some rock falls, and so we did have to help them manage some detours. I think in large part we continue to fare so well because our bridges are amongst the nation's best. But our system doesn't, the new system doesn't, or it's not even a new system. That system we use to identify the areas of most critical concern, we were just using that for our bridges for many years, and now we're using it. We're growing the system to make sure that we're using it also for the pavement itself and for any of our structures across the region. So we are trying to use tech as much as possible so that we can be smart in our deployments, make sure that we have the right people at the right place where it's most critical, and expedite our response, because again, we all have limited resources, so whatever we can do to manage those better is what we want to do. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments? Commissioner Hartung.
My usual. Director Swallow, do we know the timeline on the road safety audit for Pyramid Highway?
I don't remember it off the top of my head. I thought we had emailed it to you a couple months back, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason I thought that it was coming close, so I want to stay on that.
I would agree with you. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay. One of the other things that I'd like to do is I'd like to meet with your deputy, and maybe we can do this over the phone. It's not an issue, and of course with the district engineer, with Mike Fees. I'd like to talk about, NDOT raised the speed limit through the center of Spanish Springs. It's a bear to get out because the traffic levels are so high now. I mean, I'm almost to the point where there are certain times of the day where I think we should just spend money on striping it as a parking lot, because it used to take me exactly 11 minutes to get into town, and now some days it's as much as 25 minutes. So it has increased substantially. I will say RTC did a great job. Was it Jay Pullen, who did the signal timing? Andrew, my bad, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, it actually has done a great job at certain intersections on the Pyramid Highway. Once you get onto McCarran, it's a little clunky, but it really has helped. That signal timing, it works, by golly. Who would have known? But I would certainly like to just talk about, and I know that we had an issue with the 85th percentile traveling at more than 55 miles an hour, and so we raised the speed limits. So if we have a whole bunch of people who decide they're going to raise, that they're going to rob convenience stores, do we just make that legal also? I don't see the connection with that. What I think we need to do is just more enforcement. Is to get people to slow down, because we know that they're flying, and I know they want to get to where they're going. We heard you talk about, is it really worth getting a ticket, or any of those kinds of things, or worse yet, getting in a crash, or heaven forbid. But it's to the point now where my wife will rarely get out on Pyramid Highway from Sky Ranch directly. She will go out to La Posada and get out at the light because she's afraid. She's just afraid because people are flying. They're not doing 55. They're doing 70 and 75. I mean, they are cooking because they're trying to get into town or back out. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any other members have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for your report. Okay, Madam Clerk, I believe we are on to item 8, Commissioner announcements and updates. This is to include topics for future agenda items as well. Any members have any future agenda items? Commissioner Hartung.
Just a comment, Madam Chair. I'd like to apologize for the interruption of my telephone. It was someone who was going to give me an increase, or apparently my auto warranty has expired.
Was it from Pahrump?
I'll call them back. Yes, I'll call them back immediately.
Almost from Pahrump.
Handle mine, too.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we've got on future agendas a number of items that we've been discussing here today. I do think as part of the Vision Zero sort of global discussion about safety and talking about the engineering and the enforcement, we do need to talk about the NDOT study of Plum Lane in front of Worcester High School, where we had commissioned them to do a study to see if the speed limit could be lowered there because of some pedestrian deaths and incidents. Yeah. And the study, am I getting this wrong? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. And the study came back and said that were they to lower Plum Lane in front of Worcester, it would fail the road. So I just bring that up because we need to get creative in how we address the flow of people and pedestrians into school areas. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just part of a bigger global discussion that we're having about engineering approaches as you start to come into a school zone. What does that look like, and how do we get, as a priority of Vision Zero, how do we start laying out on the roads engineering improvements, particularly as they relate to school zones? And I know we're getting a presentation on that, I believe. Yeah, I think I got a head nod. Okay, anything else? Okay, saying nothing else, Madam Clerk, we have at this time, we are in closing public comment. I don't have any forms in front of me.
We have no additional public comment, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today, and at this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion, a second. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.